Today, I'm going to review the song Chemical Marriage by the band Mr. Bungle from their second album, Disco Volante. For those who don't know Mr. Bungle, it's a very odd group, mostly active with their three major label releases from 1991 and disbanding sometime around 2004-ish. But in 2020, some of the band reformed to re-record and tour on this updated version of their first high school demo, which is like in the style of 80s thrash metal. So whereas that thrash metal was only this underlying vague influence on their other albums, among this other eclecticism, this newer album is just thrash metal. People familiar with my old band, Stratosphere, are most likely very familiar with Mr. Bungle. My band, Stratosphere, was on Mimicry Records, which is run by Trey, the guitarist and keyboardist for Mr. Bungle. I have programmed keyboards for their tour with this keyboard right here. For their California tour, I helped Trey program this very complicated setup for multiple keyboards. If you're not familiar with Mr. Bungle, and maybe you're more from the Beach Boys chord analysis side of my subscribership, you are in for a real surprise here. In general, I would say this band is utterly genre-defying, and I hear people use stuff like that all the time, but this really is a group where very often you couldn't put your finger on what style this is. They use unusual chord progressions and melodies, sometimes from advanced jazz or modern classical, Stravinsky type of tonalities, some really out there stuff, and very well executed with the vocal melodies, over chord tones that are not the obvious melody. There's a very high level of musicianship in the band. Some people are trained in jazz, like the bass player Trevor Dunn. They all played rock and metal at one point because of their upbringing, but then eventually things like film music, old Italian film music and German film music. The singer is Mike Patton, who was in a more famous band called Faith No More, which some of you may remember from 1988's hit Epic. It also has Trey Spruance, the guitarist and keyboardist who runs the band Secret Chiefs 3. Bear McKinnon plays saxophone and keyboards and flute, and occasionally maybe some vocals. I'm not 100% sure about that. And drummer Danny Heifetz. In a lot of ways, you could call this band prog rock or progressive, but the aesthetic they exude is so markedly different than any, King Crimson or Genesis or any of the things that people, Zappa, Gentle Giant, that it almost doesn't even make sense. I mean, I know I've heard people compare Bungle to Zappa, but there's really not much in common other than it's not normal music. It's music that is definitely strays from pop music forms, from rock music forms, from traditional song forms. Yeah, even though they have some complex time signatures, some very difficult parts to play that are very progressive, when they add in this Ennio Morricone aesthetic or a German film music like Peter Thomas type of vibe, or they reference the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds with their production on California, or the experimentalism of surf rock engineer pioneer Joe Meek to make psychedelic, outer space jazz arrangements and long, complex song forms. Some of the music is very abrasive, and honestly, it can be an acquired taste. You might listen to, their second album, and it would turn you off completely. Back in high school, when I first heard it, I hated it because I thought it was going to be like the first record, but it wasn't. Anyway, I want to get to the review of the actual song here. What's different about this, especially Disco Volante, is it's abstract and it's real art. It doesn't have verse, chorus, verse like in pop music. Mike Patton, people know him as one of the greatest singers on earth, and he has a lot of fanboys. But if there was ever a reason to really be a Mike Patton fanboy for me, it's Chemical Marriage. It's where he shows you he can use his voice like an instrument. There's no lyrics. There's just sounds alternating between these different personalities of a little bit of a higher feminine thing and a lower masculine thing. But Mike Patton's ability to hit these very strange notes that, like I said, sound Stravinsky-ish or advanced jazz or something, or film music, it's really quite a wonderful aesthetic that is truly a work of art. Every one of their albums sounds completely different. Their debut was kind of like this psycho clown carnival funk atonal metal thing, and it's a really well done album and is so strange compared to the albums that were coming out then. I will say it sounds a little bit dated today. I wouldn't recommend starting there. I love that album, but my favorite is Disco Volante, which has the song I'm going to review, Chemical Marriage. It is abrasive, and it is a learning curve to love this album, but it is so wonderfully abstract and truly genre-defying Chemical Marriage is the second song. The first song is this song called Everyone I Went to High School With Is Dead, and it's like this thrash thing that's supposed to clear the room before the most amazing album ever sets in. The third album, California, is definitely the most listenable. It has a Beach Boys Pet Sounds vibe, rockabilly big band, doo-wop, Neil Diamond and Radiohead style ballads, Romanian gypsy rock metal, exotica, big orchestrations, a really, really nice album. But anyway, we're going to review the second song on their second album, Disco Volante, and it's called Chemical Marriage. This is written by guitarist, keyboardist Trey Spruance, and I've played with his group, the Secret Chiefs 3. I've recorded and toured with them. There are multiple composers in this group, and each one has their own style, and this song is very, very Trey, or at least in my view of what Trey's kind of very unique compositions are. There's no lyrics, but it does feature the vocalist, Mike Patton, using his voice as an instrument, alternating between that higher and that lower part. There's also percussive parts on the vocals, that type of thing, and whistling. I suck at whistling. The other instruments involved this morphing, I think, B3 organ, where every section it's as if that organist, dialed up. I don't know how those organists change tone so fast sometimes between sections, but the way the organ morphs from section to section is one of the most fantastic things I think I've ever heard recorded. There's a stand-up bass on the song. I don't think there's any electric. It's a very nice and prominent sounding stand-up bass in the mix. There's a jazzy type of drum part, and the song has a rumba feel. I don't know if it's an actual rumba, but it just has this organ rumba feel through almost the entire song. So the jazzy drums, some interesting percussion. There's like shakers and wood blocks and timpani. There's even like a timpani solo at one point, which is really cool. I think some hand claps. Then there's this outer space jazz part, which seems to feature this evolving analog string type of thing. What is this song about? Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz was a book from Germany, I think in like 1600s. I don't think they know who wrote it, or maybe they ascribed it to someone, but there was some controversy around it. It's one of the, I think it's the third Rosicrucian manifesto, and very different than the two before it. This book is an allegoric tale divided into 7 days, similar to Genesis in a way, and recounts Christian Rosenkreuz getting invited to a wonderful castle full of miracles in order to help with a chemical wedding of the king and queen, or the husband and the bride. There's a consistency of the orchestration, the instruments in this song that just sounds like one band, but it's this other-worldly band. It's really, really cool. And I think those ideas of the initiation rites and the marriage between the husband and the bride is manifest in the vocal. Like I said, there's this higher part and this lower part, and they're very distinct from each other. Even I think in their panning and their reverb, they just, kind of paint this alchemical sound. So let's get into the song. I'm going to take the hit on the copyright here because I want you to hear what I'm talking about. All right, so let's start at the beginning. We hear organ and snare drum pretty much. There is a really nice reverb on there that's creating this like pre-delay sound, which is really nice on the organ. And I'm pretty sure there's 2 layers of organs. I hear a higher and a lower one because that organ sounds like one though, but I think the layering it's 2. So this is what I'm talking about. Patton enters with a percussive sound, which sounds kind of like a shaker, and goes. Then it goes to the other side and does it again. Let's listen from right there. Oh, sorry. So we talked about that masculine lower vocal, no words, just fulfilling that lower part. So it does that organ intro, then it does the and then finally the whole band comes in. You hear the stand-up bass, you hear the vocals. Such an easy part, but it's so funny. We used to listen to this in high school and we would just laugh our asses off when this would come in. We're like, what is that? I mean, the idea that a singer would be doing anything but singing, because that's what they do in every other band. They just sing, they sing their lyrics. This is totally different. This is voice as instrument, and there's no better person for voice as instrument than Mike Patton. That's just a fact. Bass, stand-up bass. Hear that shaker? There's also a higher vocal you can hear. Then it goes to that feminine part up an octave. Patton's got such a great soprano too. Yeah, the organ stays pretty consistent over those two parts. Stand-up bass sounds great. The drums sound very groovy and relaxed. There's this extra circus cymbal, like a... Really, I can't even sing that high anymore, man. Okay, first of all, fantastic ride cymbal sound, and then this bass sound is really good, and the bass playing is great. So there's two organs. There's the melody, and then there's this lower kind of chromatic thing. So timpani comes in, and I think the drummer's hitting the toms. Doom, doom. The organ sound changes pretty drastically. Listen to this organ sound. Now listen to this one. That organ sound is outrageous. And then there's some kind of woodblocky thing. Got a really interesting polyrhythm, actually. I'm playing it like crap, but there's a really interesting, I don't know what instrument that is. I don't think it's a wood block, but it's something like that. Obviously, the stand-up bass is just going dun-dun. Now this vocal part, man. Wow. So yeah, this vocal part, still no words. See that part of that masculine lower voice, I think. Now it goes into a part that reminds me of something Peter Thomas, the German film composer, would have done. This is not like a Peter Thomas song, just the vibe and the sound. Like outer space jazz is what Peter Thomas specialized in. And this just has that vibe. It's very simple. It's just, instead of the organ, it's just holding chords, so it sounds kind of spooky. And then you got that stand-up bass and the jazz drums going along. Then it just has these analog string swells, and that's it. But it is so effective. Such a great part by Trey. And it's moving in tritones. If you've heard me talk before, tritone has a very special sound when you move a chord from a major chord to a major chord, a tritone apart. This is one major chord. Now there's a tritone from there. I can't remember what key we're in. Then the same thing, I think up a whole step. Super high voice. And there's those sort of analog string swells. I can't tell if they're supposed to be analog. I don't think they're real strings. It's either a fake keyboard trying to sound real, but the result is this analog-y keyboard string sound to me. Now we go back to that organ part, but once again, the organ sounds completely different. The rumba and all the other instruments sound different too. Boom, boom, boom. Cool chords. This part used to crack us up too. Okay, let me sing that. It almost sounds like the drummer's playing that cymbal, but it's a orchestral crash. Shaker sounds fantastic. There's a wood block in there. The vocals, very abstract. I think you'd agree with me. Mike Patton has redefined what a singer is to a band. It's a vocalist. And there is no better demonstration than this song of what you could do with a singer not singing words. Now back to that other section. Very Peter Thomas Spy type of thing. Whistle. You hear that other low voice too? It's humming. Organ changed again. Man, if you're familiar with Trey's type of compositions, there is no more quintessential part in my mind as a fan than this section. You know, you've gotten through this incredible psychedelic rumba, and you're like, I need another section. What do I need? So it's that same, you know, theater organ master up behind the curtain kind of vibe going on, and the rhythms get very strange. Augmented chords, a lot of strange chords. You can't tell what key you're in. Some really cool reverb on it. It's just a great piece of writing, and the engineering is fantastic too. Okay, you're like, what could bring this over the edge? How about a timpani solo from Willie Wynant? Doing a strange rhythm. What? Oh, okay, I was super close to done. It's okay, I gotta... Timpani solo is out of this world. I mean, these chords, these rhythm, you don't know. This is like a brain scrambling right here. The chances they were willing to take on this record with a Joe Meek kind of overdriven sound that's very extreme in places, it's lovely. This thing, listen to the way the reverb trails over this. Back to that space part, that Peter Thomas-y part. There's this string that comes in. That organ again. I mean, that was pretty dorky, but that kind of felt some jazz hands there, that ending. That D minor, I don't know what key it's in. It's a minor major 7 chord, or maybe there's even a 9 in there, but it's that quintessential spy chord. But anyway, this song is my favorite Mr. Bungle song. I think that no one has ever made anything like it. It defies all genre. It is a unique creative direction that I wish more people would, you know, take as a guide and then do their own thing with it. But the level of musicianship is fantastic. You know, the lead here is the organ, but then also, like I said, Mike Patton doing this non-vocal music, which as a, you know, exhibition type of thing. Anyway, thanks for watching, and listen to that album, Disco Volante. But it's kind of a harsh album. You have to get through the weeds, but you will be rewarded heavily if you persevere. I hate having to advertise to you, so let me make this quick. I could really use your help to grow this channel. Between my full-time job as an ER nurse and being a husband and father of 2 kids, it is very hard for me to find the time to make content for this channel. Many of my videos take 10 or 20 hours to create. For those of you who are really getting a lot out of my lessons, here is how you can help me out. Make sure you are subscribed to my channel and that the notification bell is set to all notifications for my channel. I think only 10% of you have that clicked now. You can watch more of my videos by browsing through the playlist section of my channel to find the videos that most interest you. But the very best way you can help me is to subscribe to my Patreon music school called High Castle Conservatory. YouTube pays me about 1 cent per view, but on Patreon you can decide to give me $3.50 a month or $7 or $15 or more, whatever you feel you're getting out of my lessons. The more support that I get on Patreon, the more time I have to devote to making unique music education content for you. At this point, I have not abbreviated my videos here on YouTube or put my full videos behind a paywall, and by joining my Patreon, you help me in the most direct way possible. If you have found yourself really enjoying my lessons, then please come join High Castle Conservatory on Patreon. Lastly, please consider buying my original music projects I.S.S. and High Castle Tele Orchestra on Bandcamp. You can find the details and links in the description below.